raise your hand during the Q&A session, or you can put in your doubt in like chat. And yes, so also like before starting the call, we had sent a mail with the reading. So just for your reference, we're going to send that again in chat. So yes, have fun. Over to you, Astha.
Thank you, Chinmay, and thank you for helping us organize this event. So hello everyone. Firstly, a huge thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. As we said in the emails that you received, your 1 hour of today, we will make it count. So we talk about professional development, and one of the key skills in that process of your professional development is the ability to express your thoughts to your audience. As an orator, it's crucial to make your audience understand what you want them to understand. And this often sets you on the onset of your journey as a leader. Talking about a leader, I would like to welcome our speaker tonight, who is very close to me as my mentor from the day one of my journey here at uOttawa IT. And MaryAnn is the Chief Enterprise Architect at the University of Ottawa and is a digital transformation leader. Along with her role at uOttawa IT, MaryAnn is an advocate for inclusion and diversity and an inspiring leader who runs an organization to promote women in tech, which is called uOttawa Women in Innovation Group. Please join me to welcome MaryAnn tonight. The stage is yours now, MaryAnn.
Thank you, Asta. On January 14th, 2013, Southwest Airlines Flight 4013 took off from Chicago in the early evening. It was a short flight destined for Branson, Missouri. The weather was fair, with only minor turbulence experienced through the flight. As the plane approached the destination, the pilots contacted the Branson control tower. They were told by controllers that they were 15 miles from their target, but the pilots responded that they had the airfield in sight. Controllers then cleared the plane for a visual approach on Branson runway 14. With 124 passengers on board, the pilots executed a near-perfect landing, so smooth that the passengers applauded. But as the passengers were clapping, the confusion was setting in for the pilots. The runway was shorter than expected, and they had to use emergency brakes in order to stop in time. They had landed at the Branson downtown airport, 6 miles from their destination. It was a nice landing at the wrong airport. So what does this have to do, this airliner fail? What does this have to do with public speaking? The most important lesson I've learned in my career is that you could have the best product, the best idea, the best solution, or the best design. But if you can't tell a compelling story about it, you're left with a nice landing at the wrong airport. Today, I'm going to show you how to start a talk, how to use structure in all of your communications, and how to make an impact on your audience. So how do we start a talk? It's a really difficult thing to do, and there is an art to it. So we're going to start with showing you how most presentations and most talks start. Asta and I are going to do a bit of role play to demonstrate how this works. And as we're doing this, just pay really close attention to how this introduction makes you feel. Okay, Asta, over to you.
So please join me today to welcome MaryAnn tonight. The stage is yours now, MaryAnn.
Hi, my name is MaryAnn Welke Lesage. I'm the Chief Enterprise Architect from the University of Ottawa, and I'm here to talk about the importance of public speaking. So how does that introduction make you feel? My guess would be it gave you the urge to look at your phone and check your text messages, because it's boring. You already know who I am and why I'm here. That's why you're here. Plus, Asta's already done an introduction. So save all that introductory stuff until after you've done a really good introduction to your talk. Okay, now we're going to do another one. Over to you, Asta.
Please join me to welcome MaryAnn tonight. The stage is yours, MaryAnn.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me. Let me just get set up here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, MaryAnn.
Okay, good. I'm just trying to share my screen. Can you tell me when you see my screen? Okay. Okay, how many people have seen a presentation start that way? It's awkward, right? It's you kind of feel the pain on behalf of the speaker because it feels so awkward. Don't start your talks, any kind of talk, with sharing your screen. Hold that thought. We're going to get back to that point a little later. Okay, one more time. Asta.
Okay. Please join me tonight to welcome MaryAnn. MaryAnn, the stage is yours. MaryAnn, you're on mute, I think.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. That's probably the most common words you've heard in 2020, right? The combination of you're on mute and oh, sorry, I was on mute. So here's the message about that. When you're the speaker, be prepared, be really careful. Try not to be on mute when you start. And if you do make that mistake, we all make those kinds of mistakes. Be prepared with a good joke to kind of smooth over the awkwardness of that. But that's not that's not the point. Those are all the ways, the most common ways to start talks. Now we're going to go into the best ways to start a talk. The third best way to start a talk is to start with a question that matters to the audience and something that makes them think, a provocative question. Potential questions for this talk could have been, why are some people better at public speaking than others? Can public speaking be learned, or is it an innate talent? Those kinds of questions can grab the attention of your audience. The second best way that I know of to start a talk is to start with a fact that shocks people. So here's one. There are more people alive today than have ever died. Think about that. More people alive today than have ever died in all of history. That's a really interesting fact to start with. There's a lot of directions that you could go starting from that. There's a lot of talks that could start with that fact. Here's another one. In Canada today, 3.5% of university students experience homelessness. That's about 70,000 students in Canada experiencing homelessness while they're in their university studies. That's a pretty shocking fact too for Canada. And there's a lot of directions that you could go with that conversation as well. So by far the best way that I know of to start a talk is with a good old-fashioned story. It could start with, on January 14th, 2014, Southwest Airlines Flight 4013 departed from Chicago for a short evening flight. That's one way. Another way, and I've seen this more often than you would think, and some of the best talks that I've seen literally start with once upon a time. Once upon a time, everybody knows there's a story coming after that. They don't expect it in a business setting, and it can help signal to your audience, I'm about to tell a story. It's familiar from your childhood. So the next piece is how to use structure. So I was fortunate enough in my career to learn an invaluable tool that I use consistently and still use today. And today I'm going to pass it on to you. It's called the Leader Script, and it was created by a woman named Judith Humphrey, and she founded the Humphrey Group. And she also wrote a book, many books actually, but a book called Speaking as a Leader. The Leader Script may come across as common sense, and it is. It will feel very familiar. Many stories that you read and that you come across will have this this structure to it. But once you see the repeatable pattern, once you see that structure, you can't unsee it, and you should leverage it. So the basics of the Leader Script goes like this. We've already covered how you start. So in the Leader Script, that's what they call a grabber. So nice landing, wrong airport. It's a way to grab the attention of your audience, and it should come before anything. The next part of the script is to state your subject and connect your grabber to your subject. Unless you have a compelling story, you will land at the wrong airport. That's how you connect them. And then you introduce your message. So your message is a simple statement that covers your belief about the topic. The way I started mine was, the most important lesson I've learned in my career so far is. Another way that you could put it is, I believe that public speaking is a critical skill. That's another way to do it. The third piece is your structure statement. The structure statement outlines how your talk will be structured. It gives some consistency, and the human brain loves predictability and structure. So you're setting up your audience for what to expect after that. My structure statement was, today I'm going to share with you how to start a talk, how to use structure in all of your communications, and how to make an impact on your audience. So the next piece is about preparation. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Prepare in advance for all of your communications, whether it's a formal talk or a formal presentation or informal. Use the leader script, write it out, and practice with an audience. It could be anything from your 1-minute elevator pitch at networking events. You can use the script for that. It could be for your closing or opening lines at a job interview. Write it out, practice it. Make sure you do it live with an audience and get people to force you to practice. I think many of you in this call were involved in a practice session for some students that were involved in a project that Asa and I were doing, and they were preparing for their final presentation. And I very strongly advised them to practice. I asked them to practice, and then I even went so far as to enlist Asta to force them to practice. And I have to tell you, it really, really showed. The results were, it was like night and day from the first time I heard it and on their final presentation. It was really, really effective. If English is not your first language, that is or French, depending on the context that you're in, the best way to get over your nerves is this rehearsal, practicing it over and over again. That's the best way to prepare yourself for something like that. I occasionally need to do interactions in French at work. French is not my first language. I'm still learning. And I practice out loud over and over again the statements that I'm going to make, and it can really help from that angle as well. So the goal here is to develop a habit. So you want to develop a habit of using structure in all of your communications, written and verbal. If you apply structure to your thoughts, it will improve not only the delivery of your message, but it will improve the message itself. It will force you to think it through, and it will become a habit that you can start to do naturally on the fly. So if you don't use structure, this is the things that will happen. You will appear clumsy, scattered, unclear, and unfocused. That's how you will come across if you don't put that advanced preparation into it. So the last part of the structure is, how do you close? Closing is about as important as opening. So you always close by restating your message and including a call to action. So the restated message is repeating the message of your belief statement from the beginning of your talk in a different way, in a summary way, using different words, but restating the message. So a way that I could restate my message is, telling a compelling story is one of the most important success factors in your career and in your life. The next piece is the call to action. And if you take anything from this talk, if it's only one thing, it's the call to action. Close with a call to action. The most effective way to structure a call to action is, if you do this, I will, ... So it could look like in a job interview setting, it could be something like, if you give me a chance at this role, I will work as hard as I can to ensure that you won't be disappointed. It's familiar, right? Okay, the third area is how to make an impact. The first piece may be surprising to you. You are the visual, especially in today's world of digital communications and being on Teams and Zoom. It's important in person, but it's even more important online. Minimize the slides and the visual aids that you use, because it distracts from you. It distracts from your message. Sometimes we have to use slides, of course. Sometimes we're presenting our work and we need to show that, and sometimes you can't get around it. But what you can do in that scenario is don't start with that. Start with you being the visual to deliver your message. Do the entire leader script, which you can do in as short as 1 minute if you want to, before you share any slides. Once you've done that and you've established your message for the talk, when you go to sharing your slides, it's a whole lot less awkward in having that fumbling piece of sharing your screen and making sure it's the right slides and those pieces of it. Also, prepare yourself and your environment. Since you are the visual, put as much effort into preparing yourself and your environment as you would your slides. Pay attention to the sound and the lighting. Just before this call, Asta and I had a session where we made sure that the sound was working and the light worked, because it was the last time we had talked was during the day and it's nighttime now, so we wanted to make sure that it looked okay. Those kinds of things are important. One of the things that we also talked about is the easiest way in a pinch to make sure that your background looks really good is to position yourself against a plain white wall. The next piece is, if you can, stand up for your presentation. When you do presentations in person, you're almost always standing. It has a big effect. It changes your posture and it changes the way you feel. I'm standing right now. I'm lucky enough to have a stand-up desk, but there's other ways that you can MacGyver it so that your camera is in the right position when you're standing for your presentation. So the last piece is dressing the part. So dress like you would for an in-person presentation. There's a reason why people use the term power suit. And that reason is it's just as much about how you look as it is about how it makes you feel when you're speaking. It makes you feel more confident. It makes you feel better in delivering your talk. Another way to make an impact is to use pauses effectively. Don't be afraid of long silences. It's in the space between words and the space between sentences that allows people to absorb your message. That's where the thinking happens, and that's where the inspiration happens. Never underestimate the space between. The last piece is related to practice and rehearsal. So rehearsing is really, really important. Another way to rehearse is to meditate and visualize. Many professional athletes and student athletes use visualization as a tactic to improve their performance. There's lots of scientific evidence to show that this works. There's been studies that show that visualization is just as good or better as an additional workout for athletes. The same applies to public speaking. It's just as good or better than one more rehearsal of your talk. Visualize yourself giving the best talk ever. Visualize your best self. Run through the lines while you visualize. Visualize how you present yourself, what your gestures are, what your posture is. Visualize it. Hopefully several times before you give your talk when it's a high stakes type talk. Related to that, watch TED Talks and inspirational speeches, take notes on the techniques that resonate the most with you. And as you start to gather those things, you'll start to develop your own personal style in your communications and in your talks. Delivering your message is a key success factor, no matter what industry you're in, what level in the organization you're at, or what kind of role you have. It will take a lot of practice and a lot of failures. I'm starting to get pretty practice at this, yet I still find myself landing at the wrong airport all the time. It's usually because I didn't prepare. It is a lifelong endeavor with many surprise wrong airports, and it feels really good when you land at the right airport. So not surprisingly, this is going to close with a call to action. So this is my challenge to you. Create a 3-minute leader script on any topic. It could be something for school or work or anything that you aim to deliver an important message. Practice it. The message itself doesn't matter. It's about developing your muscles in using the structure. It's that practice in the structure that you're aiming for. If you do this, I will make myself available through this club to be in your audience for your 3-minute talk and give you feedback. We will record the session so that you can analyze it yourself afterwards, which is a very powerful tool, watching yourself on video. If many of you want to do this, we could arrange several 3-minute pitches in a row, and Asta can help coordinate should you choose to take me up on this. This is an opportunity for you to take this and put it into practice. Please take it. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much, MaryAnn. It was amazing, and I'm sure like our audience enjoyed. And at the same time, it was like really interactive because there was a presentation, something new for us. And I hope that they all gain insights like we all did as well. And the rehearsal part that you mentioned, honestly, after so many like practice sessions, like even this call was able to be delivered as it did today. So of course, yeah, the rehearsal is very important. And so we have few questions for the audience. So from today's call, which section explained today for public speaking do you guys think like you struggle the most? Part one, like how to start a talk. Part two, how to use structure. And part three, how to make an impact. Kindly mention about that in our chat and we can discuss further. And we can start our Q&A session now. You can even like explain, MaryAnn, like any of your experiences with public speaking. She can even review and like give insight on that. So feel free to, discuss about that now. And you can just like start off with raising your hand or send your question on chat. Thank you.
I'm gonna post a link in the chat that's about OLBI. That's like you can practice if your English or French is second language, you can practice. This is the service available at the university. So we have a question. Yes, MaryAnn. It's how can we reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. Like for which thing? For doing the talk or reaching out in general? Because there's a number of different ways. Like I can share my email address. All of you connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm connected to a few of you already on LinkedIn. And if it's for the 3-minute pitch, then we'll do that through Chinmay and Asta, and potentially we could organize a session for January. That will give you the whole holidays to think about it and practice with your loved ones.
Exactly. I mean, that was kind of one of the questions for the audience as well. Like we were planning to organize a 3 minutes pitch competition actually, where maybe MaryAnn, you can be the judge, and like we can organize such a setting where people actually absorb what they learned today. And we will definitely be having this video recording on. So just a show of hands, how many of you would be interested if that's organized? Like you can just raise your hands if you see a raise hand option at the top. Okay, there we go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, awesome. Amazing. Yeah, so definitely, like we would be organizing this if you guys are interested in January, and we will keep you posted for sure.
Any other questions? I'm glad to see there's so much there's so much interest in doing that. That's excellent. I did a very similar thing at a training program that I did, and it was you had to do it in front of all of your coworkers while you were doing this training, and it wasn't easy, but learning the structure and putting it into practice over and over again. I try to do it as much as I can. It really helped me level up in terms of my speaking abilities, and I am at the point now where I can add that kind of structure. It's like a rhythm on the fly now. Not perfectly, of course, but you do start to develop the habit, and the structure starts to get implanted into your brain.
I completely agree with that. We actually have another question coming up, MaryAnn. It's about how can I start learning a new language like French? That's kind of resonating with my situation as well.
Bonne question. When I joined the University of Ottawa, j'ai commencé avec zéro français. I didn't speak really any French at all. And there's a number of different ways that you could do it. Like Duolingo is a great way to get started. Absorbing or finding a way to immerse yourself in the language and finding people to converse with that are native speakers is really, really important. One tip that I found in my language learning journey is that mastering pronunciation from the very beginning is really, really powerful. A lot of people focus on, word structure, grammar, and then kind of end with perfecting your pronunciation. But if you do it from the very beginning, it will help you with your comprehension, because you will start to hear different sounds that don't exist in your language. And it will help you be more confident when you speak, because you will sound better from the very beginning. So French specifically, there's a lot more vowel sounds in French than there is in English. And at the very beginning, I couldn't even hear the difference, let alone say the difference. And so I use some meditation techniques to start to practice all of the 38 elemental sounds of French. There's a method called the mimic method, who has some audio tapes on SoundCloud to do that. Okay, here's a question. Can you give us a sample of a 3-minute or less speech using all the basics of the leader script? So I'm going to resist giving you a sample on it, because the challenge is to be able to do it in 3 minutes. This whole talk was a sample of it, and in order to get it in 3 minutes or less, you just make your points a lot shorter. But the beginning and the end of the script is only 30 seconds max. So part of the challenge in learning it, that 3-minute constraint is really important. You want to aim for as close to 3 minutes as possible to have the practice for aiming for the time that you're allotted. And working with a very specific constraint like that actually helps you learn the different ways that you can use the structure. So I know that didn't answer your question, Claudia. I just kind of put the challenge back on you.
Yeah, I think like that's the today's recording would be kind of like, if you bring all the pieces together, you will be able to kind of make out how you can like make the best out of the leadership script. So there's another experience as well as a question that Abdullah is sharing here, MaryAnn, that's about when he practices. He does well, but all of a sudden, when an unexpected questions comes up, he cannot hold the impression. How can we face that or overcome that?
That's a really good question. And it really just has to do with exposure and practicing answering questions. So when you do your practicing and you get some of your friends on Zoom to practice your talk, also practice the question parts. Ask them to ask you questions about your talk and answer them. And one technique that a lot of speakers use too is they think of the most common questions that they're going to get, and they actually withhold it from their speech so that they can deliver that content in the question and answer period. And that's a really interesting tactic. And then if it doesn't get asked in the question and answer period, you just kind of manufacture it. You slip it into a question that's not really related, but you answer that question first, and then you just launch into that piece. So you can think about doing that. But the best answer that I have for that is think about the different angles, think about the questions that you're going to get, and practice answers to them.
I think that's a perfect tip, I would say. I didn't actually kind of thought of it, but that's a good tip too. And actually, I would like to share one of the experiences that I had personally, and MaryAnn again helped me there as well. I was we organized, like, basically I was moderating a session in professional development workshops course that is taught by Professor Sawson. Uh, and I kind of moderated the session first time. It was in August, and at that time, I really, tried my best to kind of bring up all the pieces together, just deliver the best I could. But due to the tools and due to everything, like being remote, there were certain points where it kind of failed. So there is also something that I learned that day, and later on, MaryAnn actually took notes for me. That Thank you for that, MaryAnn, because I improved on it later on. And there were a few points that I realized that, getting, like, making your audience aware about the tools that they're using, like where what is situated, there is the mute button, there is the recording button, whenever it's remote learning. I think that's something that helps a lot. As well as, one tip that I got from MaryAnn was to learn pronunciations of your speaker's name in advance. That actually helped me this time when I did that. So I was able to make sure that I deliver, just because there were so many industry panelists joining that session, it's always a good idea to learn pronunciations of them. So their names, which is a good feature in LinkedIn nowadays as well. We can add our pronunciations for our names. So if that little thought sharing helped. So, um, so I want to know that for me, presenting to the same audience, I feel confident, but as soon as the audience changes, I feel the same. Okay. So some, like, when so that's something around when you know the audience, there is a certain different scenario, but when the audience is new, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that you need to get used to. And the more practiced you are, the more confident you're going to be, no matter who's in the audience. Yeah, as you get more exposure and you advance in your career, it will start to feel more natural. Um, I think a lot of people feel kind of scared by the credentials or the level of the people that they're talking to and things like that. And I can't remember the exact quote right now. I should look it up afterwards. But there's something that Michelle Obama said that I think about often, and it was about when she did reach the kinds of like high power decision making tables, and she was finally there, and she always had this perception of these people must be really smart. When she was finally there, she realized they're not that smart. They're not any smarter than she is or anybody else. And so trying to have that perspective can help.
Completely agree. I think, yeah. And again, like, it comes from practicing and, like, taking part in more and more such events, I would say, like, where you get to speak, you get to be the speaker or presenter. I think, yeah, that's true. So I think I skipped a question in between. Claudia, I asked this to be able to get each of the basic steps correctly, or maybe please go over. Okay, so that's like, again, the similar kind of a question.
Yeah, if you want to time it to 3 minutes, like just start with the script. There's even a template in the reading, and write it out, and then practice it, and then see how much time is left. And if there's more time, add more content. If you've gone over, take some out, and that's a really valuable exercise in working with the script. So.
Yeah, and I think we can have more kind of tutorials for 3 minutes, specifically 3 minutes pitch or extempore speech as well. Like, that's something that we can organize as well, like, as a part of that competition.
Yeah.
That would help.
And like 3 minutes is more or less arbitrary. I mean, it's more about having a specific time constraint. But when I did the training initially, it was 3 minutes, and it was effective because it's long enough to really make a point, but not so long as to be like really, really intimidating. So I think it's a good amount of time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, okay, so Mohammed is saying that helpful presentation and green background, adorable green background. I agree with you, Mohammed.
Thank
That's like a
you.
perfect setting for, winters, I would say. Um, so we have Abdullah's Ajay. Ajay is saying he took a boot camp workshop in summer, and the professor in there mentioned to think, so what's in it for them, Swift, which will help the speaker to keep the audience stay motivated and engaged.
So that's a really powerful framework too, and it's important to keep that in mind when you put your particularly the grabber and the message together, and so when you talk about your belief statement, just use that so what's in it for them perspective in order to craft the belief statement to ensure that you've covered the why this is important to them. Why does it matter? Why should they care?
I thought that let me turn on my mic and just speak for like a couple of minutes, if that's okay. Asta?
Please.
Yeah. So I like the way you put together the structure of how you have to, have the presentation or when you're at the public speaking event. So here also there's something called as building rapport. So that's very important. Like as you mentioned, like we do it at the start. So when you're building the rapport, kind of make sure that build the rapport in a way that the audience is engaged, and most of the time try to tell something out of your own experience. I mean, like when we are telling any stories, try to see if you can find any stories that are really related to you and which you can put together. So that kind of builds that positive rapport with your audience. So just thought of sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You actually just put the words in my mouth that I was searching for in the, like, before starting your slides, use the script to build rapport. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. I'm going to, next time I do this talk, I'm going to use that word. Thank you. Because I couldn't think of the exact way to put it. And the personal stories aspect, I'm also going to add that to my talk because that's really important also in the telling a story tactic. You will notice that a lot of the most famous speakers will include in their talk a story about their own childhood and connect to them about their childhood experiences and how it influenced the way they think and the way they feel about life today. Almost every single keynote speaker at a conference, you're going to see some sort of story about their childhood. So it doesn't have to be a childhood story, but connecting it to your story to some sort of personal experience, that's excellent. Thank you. And I learn often just as much from the audience, just like we just demonstrated here, as I do in practicing the talk each time. So thank you for that. That's a really valuable contribution.
Awesome. And like I also have something to share with our audience tonight, MaryAnn. Like that's a link that I just posted as we decided as well. So guys, if you open this link, you will see there are t-shirts and mugs, which kind of relate to one of the topics that MaryAnn talked about tonight. Is you're on mute. So these t-shirts and mugs, they are being on sale by the CIO Association of Canada, and that's for like everything raised by purchase of these mugs and t-shirts would be put in for supporting women in IT. So organizations like Women in Innovation and I would say ANCWIT as well, like Advancing New Canadian Women in Technology. So these are all like places where these would go, and these are really cool swags. I would say I really like the quote on them. So if you are interested, you can actually contribute to that. Just a little bit of promotion.
Thank you, Asta. Yeah, I haven't ordered my mug yet, but I'm going to do it this weekend, and I'm going to use it in meetings to just hold up the mug when somebody's on mute. And I think it's going to be pretty funny. But Ajay, I want to go back to your point because you inspired me. You inspired me to tell a personal story and connect it to my message. So this is an
Awesome.
example of me trying to do it on the fly. Okay. So the background on me, I grew up in Canada, originally in British Columbia. I moved to Ontario when I was young, and my mother's a nurse, and my father is a minister, a Protestant Lutheran minister. So I grew up with public speaking in my life. I watched him do it every Sunday, and I watched the way that he prepared. And I didn't make this connection until very recently. But when I think back to his sermons, and particularly his children's sermons, if you're not familiar with the Protestant church, there's a part in the service where there's a children's sermon where all the children come to the front and the pastor speaks directly to the children and gives them like a children-oriented story with some sort of message behind it. And so I was absorbing these kinds of structure things without knowing it as a young child, and he did use a very, very similar structure as the one I talked to today for all of his sermons and all of the messages that he delivered. So it's actually making me think I want to call him after this and ask him about, did you use a specific structure? Because all these structures are the same, right? It's just you got to learn one, stick with it, practice it, and ingrain it in your mind. And it may be that he doesn't have a structure and it's just something he does automatically. But maybe I'll get back to you and let you know whether my father has a structure or not. Another funny part of that story is that, like, if you've heard like a lot of the jokes about, has anybody heard the term PK? Somebody heard what that is? PK is a thing. It means pastor's kid, and there's all kinds of jokes about the pastor's kids in the church and stuff like that. And being a pastor's daughter, I have all of the characteristics that you would expect of a pastor's daughter, meaning being very rebellious when I was young and all those kinds of things. So.
That's something new. I mean, so the term PK actually, I think I can speak for all my friends who are fan of Bollywood movies. There was this famous PK movie which was released like a few years back, and it was not related to this term, but like that's where most of us hear that term, I would say. It was about like in India there are lots of I cannot find the word, but like what do we call it, Ajay? Like people.
Godmen.
Godmen. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Did I hear Jitu?
Yes.
Hey Jitu, hi. So Jitu was my supervisor when I was working full time for an organization. So he was my senior manager. So he is here just
wonderful.
for your presentation.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah. No, it is a very wonderful presentation, MaryAnn. I really learned a lot. So it is good.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, and if you guys want to like share anything with us or anything, like share your experience, something, just feel free to do that. And then maybe like we can also utilize some time for the pictures, and some of our team members as well have groomed up for keeping their cameras, especially considering me as well. I also groomed up tonight.
So both Asta and Chimney had the opportunity to listen to this talk several times because we practiced it practice what you preach, right? So we practiced it several times, and so they heard this message about the dressing the part and preparing your environment, and so they came, presented dressed in business clothes, and so that's excellent. And I also noticed we had a just 10 minutes before we started the presentation. Asta and I had a quick one-on-one call because I wanted her to check my background, to check the lighting, make everything's okay. And everything was set up and we had lots of time. She says, okay, I'm going to use that time to practice my introduction. And I said, yes, you're developing the habit. So.
Honestly, like when during a practice session, like when you guys like were telling me what will happen in the event today, even I learned a lot and I changed my introduction speech after listening to you, and even the wearing the formals part and the presenting yourself part. So yeah, I started learning from yesterday itself.
Thank you, Chinmay. And actually,
And
go ahead.
the good thing about the habit is you have to keep doing it for like 30 times or like for 30 days, so it sinks in with you. Like it becomes like a routine rather than a habit for you.
Did you just issue a new challenge? 1 3-minute talk every day for 30 days?
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, let's have that. Like, use our social media to post streak, maybe.
Yes.
I mean,
Awesome.
a whole talk every day might be a bit much for the 30-day thing, but considering the structure in like every day or a part of
Yeah.
the structure every day for 30 days for sure. Yeah. And I like when I first learned this, I was really gung-ho at the beginning and I was using it all the time. And then I started to feel practice and I kind of started to be a slacker. And so then it just kind of went away from my consciousness and then I would have to very consciously bring it back. And so sometimes I'm really good at it. And the where I'm at now for anything that's more or less a formal presentation, I do it because I know how valuable it is. But there's many times where I'm just really busy and I walk into a meeting room and I have my notes and I kind of wing it and I think later, oh geez, I should have used the structure.
Right. And I think, okay, so Abdullah is talking about a prize for this. So not for the 30-day challenge, Abdullah, but yes, for the 3-minute pitch that we will organize in January. We would love to, and that might, literally encourage our participants. We will, I don't know, I cannot promise a big prize, but something that would be useful. So, so yes, definitely, we would love to have a prize for that. And Mohammed is saying, I want to start buying trees for true.
Plants are nice.
That. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I have a plant here, but you cannot see that until my screen is like this. So either you'll see the plant or me. It's just that little one, but yeah, I'm motivated as well now.
I have a project that I'm going to do over the holidays. I'm going to paint that fireplace white so that the green really pops. That's my holiday project. We'll see whether it gets done or not.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I mean, talking about the background in ourselves, let's have a picture. If everybody, like, if other people who have not turned on their camera, if you guys would like to, now is the time, maybe, if you can.
For a picture.
Yeah, and I'll just put the screen on the so normal view so that like everybody of us is in the.
Oh, you had me in spotlight view that whole time? Because I'm looking at everybody in gallery view, right? So I thought after the talk we were back into gallery view.
I kind of
it is
forgot.
really nice as a speaker that you can see everybody in gallery view and not see your own face spotlighted back at you. So that's really nice.
That's true. Like that's amazing. Actually, I wish that our teachers get to see faces of our students. That was like a feedback we got from the project interviews. So, okay, so let's I'll just click the picture. So, let me
I was
smile.
on spotlight.
Oh, okay, there we go. Smile, everyone. Cheese. There.
I was just saying that during the practice session, I was on Spotlight throughout and I had zero clue about it. Like I was like, okay, you were able to see me like in that huge screen till now.
Yeah, I should have been paying attention. When you're in Spotlight, there's a way to actually exit Spotlight so that other people can't put you in Spotlight when
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
know about it. But I didn't.
That
I didn't notice that.
I saw some changes on Teams like but since yesterday, I would say. And actually, me and Chinmay, were struggling to find the poll, like live poll for the meeting has disappeared
Yeah,
now. So that's why we
yeah.
had to ask the question.
So
Uh,
new things have happened in Teams now.
Yeah, I think they wanted people to turn on their mic and start speaking rather than being, like just on
at,
the poll.
Yeah.
right.
So I guess if like no one has any question, then I would like to, thank again MaryAnn for this wonderful session. We all enjoyed a lot. And I want to thank all the audience for joining us today. You've been wonderful. And as well as the whole PDC team for like, bringing this together. And in the beginning, I mentioned that today is a special, event for us, not also because we have our guest. Alongside that, because it's our last event with Asta and Ajay, our president and vice president of PDC. And thank you guys so much for, for all the learnings that you guys gave. And we hope to do well in the future. And we will again trouble you people to guide us more even in the future. So don't worry about that part. And yeah, so today was the last event for our term as well. I would like to thank Professor Liam as well. Like, we would love for him to join yeah again. And yes, and again, like if you guys have any events in your mind or if you want to reach out to us, please do so. And I'm even going to put like a LinkedIn profile in chat so that you guys can like refer to that and like contact us in case you need anything from us. If you want to join as a volunteer or if you think that you can fit in a position, a new thing that you want to do with us, please like reach out to us, feel free for that. And yeah, we have already planned new exciting events coming up for our club next year, lined up for that. So please stay tuned and stay in touch with us. And yeah, thank you again.